Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of the If I Had One Wish podcast. I'm Crystal Hicks, your host for today, and I'm joined by a guest co-host, Sinead. Sinead, come in and tell us all about who you are.
Thanks, Crystal. So I'm Sinead Lee. I'm currently chair of our Southwest Wish region. I'm also an associate director at a consultancy, 4i Solutions. We provide services across the social housing sector. And a little bit about my background in housing. So I've been in housing 15 plus years now, and I started working at registered providers doing a variety of roles across the sector, and like many others I fell into housing and haven't looked back since, and even though I've fallen into housing, I've continued to choose to work in housing. So I think my choice there is that element of the CIH's presidential campaign, Choose Housing. So yeah, I'm grateful for my career and the opportunities that it's presented, including being involved in Wish and you lovely ladies.
Lovely. Well, it's lovely to have you with us today, Sinead, and we do have a bit of a Wish theme on the podcast today. We're joined by Tracey McEachran, who is currently the president and chair of Women in Social Housing. So Tracey's been involved in Wish since 2017. She was on the London board, later becoming chair of Wish London, and then our very first president of Women in Social Housing. She has her own business, Curious Minds Consulting, and is a senior associate for Campbell Tickell, as well as being chair of Chichester Greyfriars Housing Association and chair of Artspace Portsmouth. So Tracey's had a long career in the corporate sector as a leader before then leaving to study fine art photography. After gaining a BA, she went on to achieve an MA in the same subject. So Tracey continues to create, give talks and put on exhibitions. Alongside her art practice, she's an all-year-round swimmer. That sounds cold. And has just published some of her own poetry in a poetry book she co-edited with other coaches. Really excited to hear a little bit more about that, Tracey. So Tracey's worked in the housing sector since 2015, specialising in leadership and organisational culture. And in rather exciting news, in 2025, Tracey released her first book, The Female Guru, which we are really looking forward to learning more about in today's episode. So thanks for joining us, Tracey. It's lovely to have you.
It's lovely to be here.
Thanks, Tracey. So today's podcast is one of the many ways the Wish Board would like to recognise all that you've done for Wish since 2017, especially in your role as our very first president. We'd love to use the time to reflect on your time with Wish as you step down from your role as president later this year. So if we can, let's start at the beginning. Why did you get involved with Wish and what made you stay?
It's a nice question, that, because it gets you to think back. I can remember the first time I was in Manchester at the conference, CIH conference in Manchester, which was probably around 2016. And I'd spent most of the day being with a group of men that were working in housing, predominantly development and CEOs. And this later in the day, this other guy joined us, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to a Wish event," and I was like, "Oh, what's that then?" Mm-hmm. So it's Women in Social Housing, so it was going to be a room full of women. So joy on joy, I thought, well, that sounds like the place to be. So he said it gets really rammed, but I was welcome to go along with him. And which I did, and they very kindly let me in, and that was my first Wish event, and it was just so different. It was welcoming, it was vibrant, there was a lot of chatting. The lovely thing about women networking, they definitely talk about work, they definitely talk about their careers, but they talk about a whole load of other things too. And so I immediately felt I belonged there. I felt completely energized by the energy in the room. So that was my first Wish event. And not long after that, I think it was the early 2017, they advertised for board members for the London board, and I just jumped at the chance. And so, yeah, and from then till now, I just have the same buzz every time I go into a Wish event, and we went all through the pandemic together as a board. We support each other. It was just really lovely, yeah, having that network and support, and also exposure to lots of things around, technical things around housing, but also career development and more and more and more. So, yeah, so that's why I'm still here.
And it's lovely to still have you, Tracey. You've mentioned there in answering my first question around the support, and I suppose the support is continuing and ever growing. But how have you seen Wish grow and evolve over your time that you've been involved?
It's changed a lot. In some ways, not. We're still women networking organisation, but we're now a kick. So we've got this much more formal structure. We have an MD in place. So there's I would say we've put the structure in to allow us to grow. And that's quite a big change. We also offer training. So you'll see if you go on our website, Hayley and Gemma do brilliant training that's focused at women. So that's a new offer. We have a mentoring offer. So we've really broadened our offer. We have various levels of membership. When I started, we had 2-level, individual and business or organizational, and now we have corporate plus and corporate and individual. So yeah, so we've really expanded. And I think 2-3 years ago, we formed a board in Scotland. We got a fantastic board in Scotland. And this year we launched Northern Ireland. And even more exciting, a friend of mine that some of you will know, Hannah Harvey, who's in Australia, has recently contacted me and said that she wants to set up Wish. So, that I think we're just growing. And we sort of, I think many of us that start off in these things think that we're going to manage it. We're coming into an organization in the hope that it's no longer needed. But it's actually needed now more than ever. And I can't see that changing for a long time, actually. And we've embraced that at Wish, I think.
It's so inspiring to hear about the journey that Wish has been on. And I do remember, you're just talking about the pandemic there, Tracey, and gosh, like shift change and sort of workplace practice, and for Wish thinking how we could support women working in the sector through that. Yeah, it's we have done a great deal, haven't we, in the past few years. It's phenomenal. So one of the new things that we have done in the past few years is create this role of president, of which you have been our very first, and it's been such a blessing to have you in that role, Tracey. So in the role, you get to deliver a campaign, and your campaign was Hear Her Voice. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about the campaign and the impact that you feel it's had.
What we've done is raised awareness that we're not hearing women's voices so much, certainly in meetings, but then you go to conferences, the same is true. And women are very different from men when it comes to how they ask questions as well. I'm putting everybody in women and men. There are going to be differences. We're not all the same. But in general terms, I was at a philosophical conference and these 2 guys gave a presentation. And at the end, they went, has anyone got any questions? And the room went a bit quiet. And then a man put his hand up and he philosophized for about 5 minutes, a good 5 minutes, at the end of which there was a sort of question. And I observed when that happened, even I stepped back from wanting to ask a question because I wasn't there to share my views on a philosophy. They'd asked me if I wanted a question. So I sort of stepped back. But in doing that, so did every other woman. So we had half an hour of questions and I couldn't stand it any longer. And I stood up and said, why haven't we heard from a woman? Why haven't we heard from a woman? Anyway, so that's when I started my campaign, because I came back and lo and behold, there's been an extensive piece of research done at universities across the world that say that women are 2.5 times less likely to ask a question. And I think it is in that setup Men are very good, and they're wonderful to have. If I have a team at work, I love to have a mix at saying, no, this is what we have to do. They're really clear. Whereas women tend to really get curious about things or offer things up and say, how about we try this? Which doesn't have the certainty and the energy behind it as men do. And so I really felt it was important to raise awareness. We all know it's happening. As women, we see it, we observe it, and yet it continues. And it made me sad to think that universities, this thing is still playing out. You would hope that our younger women, there's a different landscape, but it isn't. And so what we've done is raised awareness to that fact, get women talking about it. It's not a male problem, this. It's a women, men, everyone problem. We all have to play our part. So we've talked and run things around how do you get your voice heard? How do you create space for yourself at a meeting? And also raised awareness for men to go, just notice what's going on if you're not getting any female voices in a meeting. Or if a female is indeed offering a fantastic solution and nobody's listening, which still happens, we know from our survey. And so we've also produced the 10 top tips for facilitators, and that was used by, I think it was social media at the CIH conference. They gave it to every facilitator. There's one thing that makes a difference. If you get a woman to ask the first question, that shifts the dial. So it's so simple to create that space to hear everybody's voices. And we've had some lovely feedback from women saying that I'd never have said anything at the conference, but because I'd heard that campaign, I was determined. And I have to say that I generally ask a question. It's very rare that I'm at something that I don't think of a question from a place of curiosity to ask, because I think it's good practice.
Thank you, Tracey. I think the campaign has had so much impact from what we know, but also maybe what we don't know. I turned up to an event a couple of months ago and somebody actually said, I'm going to ask a woman first. And I thought, oh, they must have heard about it. And it does just be having that awareness around it is definitely shifting behaviours. So that's the first time we've ever done a campaign like that.
Yes.
And I suppose it was one of those opportunities that we grabbed with both hands and said, let's give this a go and see how it goes. So moving forward, what do you think? Do you think there are other opportunities for Wish into the future?
I think there's so many. I mean, honestly, I think that we're lacking, and we could, more right brain creativity. Obviously, my book is The Female Guru. I think, if we've still got meetings going on where women are being talked over and not listened to, young women, I've yet to meet a young woman that joins Wish that doesn't want to do things for young women. So, there's more to be done there. But we had a fantastic event in London on the UN activism against violence, gender-based violence. So there's a huge scope for Wish to shine a light on some of those things that are really quite uncomfortable to talk about. I think we're really well placed because there's no judgment in that. There's just, okay, let's just share, do that thing that women do. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. The strength of Wish is those women, isn't it, who step forward and who are saying, actually, I'm going to give my time to this. I want to get involved.
Yeah.
What would you say to those women who would be listening to the podcast today who are thinking, I'd be curious to get a little bit more involved with Wish?
I think you need to think about where you're going to spend your precious time. So first and foremost, what do you want for yourself in order to feel fulfilled in your day-to-day? And if that is serving women and working with women to make a difference in the world, then just start doing stuff with Wish. Definitely come to our events, but we're always looking for board members or ambassadors. There's lots to do. So I really think you need to think about what you want, be really clear about what you want for yourself, and then come and join us, because it is a great place to be.
I'll mentor that.
Definitely. I couldn't get my turn my mic back on quick enough to do the segue that I wanted to do. So thank you, Tracey. It's much appreciated. You were talking there a little bit around our right-sided brain, the creativity and intuition, and you mentioned your book, which is the female guru. There's a subtitle of it which is around rediscovering your wisdom. Can you tell us about what you mean by that and why it's so important in 2025?
Yes, I think when we come into the world, we are unique. We have our character and we have things that we're naturally talented in. But in order to negotiate the world, we have to adapt. You know, women adapt to a male-dominated world. That's a reality. And as we go through life, we encounter people and situations. We can develop our natural energy flow, or we can develop a thing that's called an adaptive behavior. And so, you know, not speaking up as much as the boys is probably adaptive behavior, because actually, if you went to nursery school, you wouldn't see any different from boys and girls. It's adaptive behavior. So there are many things like that we adapt as we grow. And what we do is move more and more away from the essence of ourselves. So we've got an ego that wants to protect us. So it does all it can in this, and it's a lie, to be fair. It's not actually protecting us, it's holding us back. But this ego says you've got to fit in, you've got to be like this, you need to be successful. And so we then develop these adaptive behaviors alongside our natural gifts. We develop more of these adaptive behaviors. And we'll get to a point in our life, many of us, when we go, who am I? Actually, who am I? I've formed, I've polished, I've gone through, and I've got an idea of myself as being this tough woman or whatever it is, this carer, whatever it is. And there feels like potentially there's something missing. Or there's this thing that we get the next job, and then we want to develop and we want to get promoted and we get the next job. And we become really successful, but we're not happy. And when we're operating from a place of scarcity and fear, we will never, ever find happiness. And often we're in adaptive behavior, or something called shadow behavior. I won't go into here, but we're in adaptive behavior. And it feels like we're on a treadmill and we can't get off. We can't get off because it's so important we keep going faster. And so the female guru is about really stepping back. It consists of my musings, activities I've done that get me reconnected with myself and has developed my self-awareness, has developed my whole person, not just my career side, but all aspects of me, creativity, intuition. And so there's stories in there, there's examples in there, there are myths in there, there's poetry, there's images, all different ways to speak to the reader about something that's beyond the cognitive left brain that fragments everything. So left brain thinking is, there's a problem, I need to fix it. Oh, look, I can see what's the root of that, and there's another problem. And it gets more and more fragmented. And we go more into left brain. Whereas right brain it doesn't analyze, it synthesizes. So it comes back and sees more of the whole, intuition, embodied, wisdom, all those things, and makes sense of the world from a more holistic place. So we're using more of ourselves. We're not fragmenting ourselves into little boxes. So I'm not sure if it made sense, but that's the female guru. It is really about stepping back and re-looking, and it's got things in it that just stories to help you think about how you can reconnect.
I'm sure, like many others, it felt like you were just speaking directly to me, Tracey. There was so much that resonated with me, and it was really, really powerful. It's not my podcast, it's your podcast, but I actually felt myself getting a little bit emotional. Actually, I almost felt like it just felt so powerful and validating that what you feel and what you go through as a woman in your journey, and you do go through this question in your purpose and who am I. It's
Absolutely.
normal. It's not just you that goes through this. So thank you so much for sharing it. It was really, really powerful. And once I have your book, it will be firmly moving up my reading list. I can say. And you spoke about so many different points there that I was frantically scribbling notes just because it really resonated with me. But if you had to give one thing that you would like somebody to take away from your book, could you point to just one element?
Absolutely. You have everything you need. You've always had it. It's available to you at any time.
Wow. Tracy, you've done such a good job, I think, explaining the purpose of the book and what you want people to take away from it. I'm going to, if it's all right, read back to you what you said the book was about. So you said it's a gentle guide for those seeking deeper self-awareness, resilience, and a more authentic way of being. It's for anyone navigating personal challenges, seeking spiritual growth, or simply yearning to live with greater courage, creativity, and passion. Wow, incredible. We live in such a challenging environment around those things, especially as women. So in today's world, for women or anyone seeking spiritual growth, to live with greater courage, creativity and compassion, what do you think the challenges are?
It's our own thinking, and we have a thought and we believe it's real, and we follow those thoughts. And we always have a choice. Our education system funnels us into that. And I've been brought up like it by my mother. She was brought up by her mother in that same way, and we've not really changed the dial. Even though we've tried, there's been moments in time where we've had thought leaders. It's called the female guru because often the thought leaders are men. But there are some women out there who are totally brilliant, like Byron Katie. Is Oprah Winfrey. There's a number. I think that's the thing. And the more the ego is in charge, the more left brain is in charge, the more we go down the rabbit hole. And then when you see that, you're free of it. But it takes an insight to really see it. Let's talk about love. How do I know? How do you know I love my son? Because I'll talk about him. But what love is, we express it in form. So I go from feeling something and I put some form around it by being there for him, tell him I love him. So I put some form around it. In spirituality, often there's no form. It's a felt experience. It's intuitive experience. And we get a bit shaky on that. So, but once you see it, you can't, that's it. It's a change.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of a practice that I try and do, which is to carve out some time in my week to put the to-do list to one side and to stop being productive and to just be. So, like yesterday I did it. My daughter was desperate to take the dog for a walk in the woods. And gosh, I've got so much to do at the moment. I couldn't be bothered. But I was like, no, we're going to go and do this. We're going to go for a walk in the woods. And we listened to the birds, we kicked the leaves, we threw the ball for the dog, and we just spent some time just being in nature. And I got back and I was like, that's just what I need more of in my life. As women, it's so challenging, isn't it, to carve out that space because we've got, all of us, multiple to-do lists.
We definitely have. But there is a question. So Byron Katie would say, if you have a thought that I haven't got time to do that, is that thought real? And how do you know it's real? And often we get caught up with what we think we have, and we actually give ourselves so much more time by not chasing everything. And the more we have, the more we're in fear, and the more we're in scarcity. It's time scarce. The more the pressure, the less effective you'll be. You're just going down the wrong path. It's really, really questioning, actually, do I have to do this? And that is something of a female thing. We're brilliant. We try and juggle everything. But often we do things we don't actually have to do.
Wow, let's breathe.
Tracey, you've definitely given me lots of food for thought, and you've shared lots there with your experiences and what you've accomplished. But what's next for Tracey?
Well, I've also made oracle cards to go with the book. So right now, the book I'm waiting. I should get it off to the printers this week, and the oracle cards with which are my pictures, I should get finished in the next couple of weeks. So I've got to. I really want to get on top of sorting those out, being printed, and get them to distributors, and then I can start on the marketing, a launch and stuff like that around those things. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, every week I'm publishing one of the oracle cards with a load of questions that help you get back to the essence of you. So you don't have to buy anything; it's free. Obviously I'm chair down at Art Space and at Chichester Grey Friars, so I'm really looking forward to nurturing those boards, getting them really functioning. Both of them, Art Space has had some challenging times. We're really through the dark clouds and out into the rainbows now. So I'm looking forward to seeing the artists there flourish. And Chichester Grey Friars is just a wonderful little organisation, so well run. And so I'm really engaging with the tenants there, and that's just a pleasure. So, and that's quite near my home, and then just carrying on. My hope is to do more and more work with organisations that do want to really dive deep into understanding a problem and working from a place of abundance rather than scarcity to come up with solutions. So that would be my focus, really, to work with individuals and teams and organisations that are prepared to be a bit creative and take a different approach to finding solutions to problems. That's my focus, really.
Brilliant. We need so much more of that with all the challenges that we face across the sector at the moment. So, Trace, we always end the podcast on our famous question, which is, if you had one wish for the sector, what would it be and why?
It's pretty much in the same vein as I've been talking about. I think we have big problems, big issues, and I like to call them opportunities, actually. I do get a bit when people go, what's the issue? I go, no, what's the opportunity? So we have lots of opportunities in the sector. And the roadmap, or one of the key levers in us thriving as a sector, is diversity of voice. So I look at organisations that are really focusing on building culture, strong behaviours to ensure that there is a diversity of voice. So I would really love to see, my wish would be that more organisations come together, that we stop looking at people's job titles and look at them for their talent, and we bring different people together and have innovation labs or that type of thing where we are truly non-competitive, non-judgmental, that we drop all comparisons and expectations, and we work from a place of open mind, open heart, open will. So non-judgmental, no cynicism, and courage. And I would love to see more of that work done across the sector. I think the way we're structured in a lot of organisations just channels us into silo working. And that's never going to get us into a place where we're really thriving, I think. So I'd love to see, my wish would be to see organisations really come together to solve the big problems or to work on the big opportunities with cross-functional, level individuals from different organisations. So that would be my really happy place. One wish is I'm in a room and I've got like maybe 20 people, and they're from all different walks of life, all different organisations, and we just explore one of our opportunities together, and we do more of that.
Can I come?
Yeah.
Can I get myself on the guest list? Sounds brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Tracey, and thank you, Sinead, for being a fantastic co-host today on the If I Had One Wish podcast. Tracey, we would like to just use this as an opportunity to say thank you so much for everything that you have given to Wish since you joined us. You've been an inspirational chair, of the London board, a fantastic president. I've learned so much from what you've done, and how you've led the organisation with compassion and grace over the past few years. And I know you will be no stranger to us moving forward. We've got your number. But yes, thank you so much. And yes, you've been listening to the If I Had One Wish podcast. Thank you everyone for listening to the If I Had One Wish podcast. Next time, we'll be talking to another inspirational female from the housing sector who will be sharing her career story on what she's learned along the way. And of course, we'll be asking again the big question. If she had one wish, what would it be and why? See you next time.